I This is going to be a long video. I'm going to cover a lot of topics, and ultimately, it's quite serious. Although I tried to make it as entertaining as possible. Okay, so I recommend leaving this video on in the background while you, I don't know, play a game or something, or do your housework. I don't know. It's not a video you should sit down in front of the computer and listen to. It's really a video you should leave running in the background. So I recommend you do that. So I recommend just listening to the full video before you comment anything. Of course, feel free to comment, and if you agree or like with anything I've said, I would love it if you subscribe, because believe me, I've got plenty more coming. I'm afraid I have some bad news for the human race. If you look back at history, you will find that every single group and every single country has gone to war or held some animosity towards another group for a very superficial reason, whether it be religion, race, ideology, political stance, or even the amount of land they own compared to them. The human mind is programmed to not necessarily despise difference, but acknowledge difference. That is a very important distinction to make. It is not built to immediately despise difference. It is just built to immediately recognize difference. That is why whenever you have white babies born, or even black babies born, they will immediately attach themselves more passionately to a parent of a similar color. It's not saying that it won't love its white father. It's just saying that the immediate recognition from its brain, its primitive little brain, with no programming put into it as of yet, just its natural primitive state, immediately acknowledges difference. And this carries on into adulthood and childhood. We see this in childhood with kids forming their little groups, and rich kids looking down on poor kids, or if there's a group of poor kids, them making fun of the rich kid, or and you can see it in race, religion, whatever, you name something that is different from the group or unorthodox from that group, they will look at it with a little bit of disdain because it's different. Now, it of course depends on the group. The less educated the group, the more likely they are to revert to a more distasteful view on the thing that is different from them. They are more likely to develop animosity towards it, and harsh jokes, and in many cases discrimination. This is where you see in the deep south of America lots and lots of racism, just blatant out and out racism, like real racism, not this bullshit. And then of course you see it with different religious groups. The Middle East in general despises Christian nations. The West, they in general, they do not like the West because they're different. And again, the West does not like the Middle East either, because they're different. They're different. They have different beliefs and different standings and different cultures. And again, the common factor to boil it all down to is that the inherent superficial difference between the two is a dividing factor. Now, why is this important to note? We can't change it, can we? Well, we can, but we have to sacrifice a part of our humanity, and it's a part of our humanity I don't necessarily agree with, but I understand the position. I have to make that distinction. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I do understand the position, okay? There is something called a great filter. And a great filter is a step, a large evolutionary or progressive step that an entire civilization, now this can apply to alien civilizations as well, that they must pass in order to survive. These can include asteroid impacts, wars, famines, diseases, all this stuff. Things that are just civilization, or rather species-ending events. The dinosaurs, essentially the asteroid hitting the dinosaurs was a great filter that they did not pass. They went extinct. It was their extinction event, and that is ultimately what a great filter boils down to. It is ultimately an extinction event that a civilization must pass to continue to survive. Now, scientists are in constant debate whether a great filter is still ahead of us, and the likely one is probably going to be a war. or behind us, in that we've passed it. I believe that the Great Filter is ahead of us. That humanity will constantly be at war. It will never stop, because the primitive inherent differences that come from a bygone era where tribes versus tribes had to make those distinctions in order to further their own tribe and feed their family and stay safe. They're too core to us. They're too inherent, and I think that they are, as a group, they make societies very, very agitated collectively, much like a group of children in the playground. They create animosity to difference. And of course, the other group in the playground, another little group with their own, who don't like the, fuck me, this is a fucking mess. Much like children in a playground, if you imagine the West and the East like children in a playground, little groups of them, and you can imagine them as whatever you want: rich kids versus poor kids, fat kids versus thin kids, nerds versus jocks. You can imagine them as any little superficially defined group that you like. It doesn't matter. They form their little groups, they form their little bundles, and they echo chamber themselves, and they shield themselves from their opposition in a certain way. Because the opposition has pros that they don't have, that they disagree with, or wish they had but don't have, so they're jealous, or they have cons that they find amusing and laughable. They, of course, start making jokes, and they start sneering at the other one. They have their little slogans, or they have their jargon, they have their derogatory terms for them, and then of course they create just a group animosity, what they call herd mentality, against that group. And if you just imagine this as the West and the East, the Middle East versus the West, that is essentially what it is. Obviously that is a criminally simplified version of it, but that ultimately is what it comes down to. Little superficial differences that our civilization has versus their civilization, our group versus their group, our tribe versus their tribe. They have their way of things, we think that's stupid. We have our way of things, they think that's stupid. And that creates animosity, and sadly that does create violence. And it is the exact same thing all throughout history. Tribes versus tribes. I mean, we can call ourselves proud nations, proud Americans, whatever, but the ultimate factor is that we're still a tribe. We still have our tribe leader, the president, or the prime minister. Those are our tribe leaders. Those are our leaders. Those are our appointed war chiefs, if you will. The attorney general, or the military general. He's just our war chief, isn't he? That's all he is. He's a war chief, if you really want to get that simplistic about it. So we haven't really evolved that much. We are still a very primitive civilization. People think because we have technology and all of these fancy doodads that we're suddenly an advanced civilization, and that we're no longer, we can no longer be compared to a primitive civilization. Well, I disagree. I still see those primitive elements in our brains, and those primitive elements, like I said, come from the fact that we are inherently aware of difference. People now, especially certain groups, seem to believe that inherent acknowledgement of difference means inherent disdain, or inherent dislike, or inherent discrimination. That's not true. That's not true. It does not automatically mean that you are automatically going to hate someone because they're different from you. It just means that you're automatically going to assume that you're going to notice that they're different from you. You are hardwired to notice it. Even if it's something extremely superficial, extremely basic, extremely underlying, as that person's a Christian, I'm not. It is something that you can't, it's just something that you notice and you take into account, and it is really from there that, depending on the person that is doing the noticing, if you will, it is from there that they make their final judgment and action upon that person. Are they just going to ignore it or get on with it, or do they take it a bit further? That's where it comes down to the individual. And a group of individuals become a herd, and that's where you get fringe groups. Now, to get to the actual point, what does this matter? Well, and how does this tie into the Great Filter? Well, it ties into the Great Filter is because it is very, very difficult, because of how core this is to our brains, to just simply remove these hardwired programs from our minds. It is very difficult to remove that sense of disdain or acknowledgement of difference. It is very difficult. In fact, it is nigh impossible. Dare I say impossible. Unless you remove the potential for difference. And that's what I think is going on. I genuinely believe... People have noticed this. They call it the Great Replacement. Look it up. It is essentially the forced integration of the East and the West in the West. And they say that this is to cull the white race. But I don't believe so. I believe it is to integrate the white race with other races. To create like this sort of mixed race. The path to hell is paved with good intentions, and I do genuinely believe the super elites in this state of mind, when you have a lot of money, when you have a lot of power, and you have everything at your disposal, what do? You run out of things to do, and you start thinking about your purpose in life. You start thinking about your place in the universe, and you start thinking about your legacy. I've done it. Everything I do is for the sake of my legacy on Earth. I want to leave something behind. Every video I make is for posterity's sake. I want to leave a memory of what I stood for and the person I was. People really do have the power to shape the world in their image. They have the money, they have the power, they have the connections. And I think it's ultimately about an ego issue. It's about their legacy. And at that state, I genuinely believe their concern ultimately now is to be the people responsible for getting humanity off Earth. I seriously think that's where they're going with it. It's not about the fucking Illuminati. It's not about Satanism. When you look at the great filters and you look at humanity and how primitive we are, that we're fighting over stupid shite like sky daddies. Ultimately, I do genuinely believe that the elites have foreseen what I have just told you about when it comes to the great filters. And the fact that humanity is far too primitive when they have such superficial differences to divide them. The solution is to remove difference. Now, I think how they will do that is, one, they will homogenize the population by forcibly integrating them with the immigrants, which is what they're doing. They are doing that. They are integrating immigrants into suburban suburban areas and cities, and it's already. I mean, it's common knowledge that the Muslim, well, not the Muslims rather, but the immigrants, the Middle Eastern immigrants, will become the majority in England by 2040 or something like that. So, like, this isn't, I'm not pulling this out of my ass. This is statistical inevitabilities I am talking about. None of it's even conspiratorial, is what I should say. What I'm saying right now isn't even conspiratorial. This is not a conspiracy. Like, some will say that the whole bit about homogenizing the population, when I get to that, they'll say, oh, that's a conspiracy. But the idea that the ethnic whites in Britain, the native British population, the idea that they will become the minority, that is not a conspiracy. That is just fact. We've seen the data, we've seen the facts, and it's not exactly hidden from mainstream news either. That is just reality. You're going to have to face it. So, that is an inevitability, and where that happens is that when that population becomes the minority, of course, what will happen then is more interbreeding between those two groups will go on. And this, of course, creates a little bit of a mixed race. We've seen a lot of mixed race, a lot of race mixing. I don't think race mixing's a bad thing. Some people seem to take it as a heresy of some sort, but I think diversifying the gene pool is ultimately quite a good thing. It's kind of like bacteria exchanging information. One bacteria is immune to this antibiotic and this one isn't, so they exchange information, they exchange DNA, and then they gain those traits. I think diversification is quite a good thing. I mean, the people who make the argument that we shouldn't diversify our gene pool, I mean, they're fucking stupid because they come from a diversified gene pool. Whatever. It's fucking stupid. I don't want to put a number on it because I can't predict. I can't give that sort of specific. That's the thing. It is easy to make this general observation. It's easy. I'm not going to lie to you. It's easy. What's hard is to spot the specifics, and that's one thing I don't know yet. I mean, we have the specific whenever the Middle Eastern population will become the majority in England, and that is about 2040, 2050. They're outpopulating us. Our birth rates are going down, theirs are going up. And, I mean, that's easy to put a label on. But when it comes to the actual proper homogenization of the population, I don't know. And let's talk about the homogenization. What is that? What does that mean? Homogenization means similarity. I mean, everything's the same. Everything is the same. Everybody looks the same. And that's the goal. Ultimately, that's the goal. That's the first step. Well, no, actually, that's not true. The first step is actually ideological assimilation and homogenization. They're homogenizing people's ideological standpoints every day. I mean, that is something that's been going on for years. I think one of the last steps will be to get the population to all look the same. This sort of milky brown type skin reach that conclusion. The gene pool will settle, and that will become the norm. That will become the norm. Believe me, that will become the norm. Especially when the government is pushing so hard for integration between these two groups. They are actually mandating that these two groups of different races mix with each other, despite the fact that it's shown demonstrably that the Muslims will not integrate. But that, you see, and people wonder, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Well, this is why. Because they want to forcibly integrate the races. They want to homogenize race. They want to remove that superficial difference. That's the end goal. They've obviously spotted. I mean, if I can sit here and spot that, a fucking nobody. They can spot that. If I can see that, they can see that. I mean, they have got the brightest, far-reaching, far-sighted minds on their side. They have got the best societal analysts money can buy. And those social analysts know a hell of a lot more than I do about the integration process. I can merely speculate how and why they're doing it. I would say that I've got very good educated guesses as to why they're doing it, but the specifics only they know. And their specifics, I would say, I mean, people who sit and say, oh, they're just doing it to be satanic, and oh, they want to destroy Christianity. They may very well want to destroy Christianity. But they don't want to destroy Christianity because it's right. They want to destroy Christianity because it's a very powerful belief system. And people can rally behind it. And people can get empowered with it. And people, again, can find difference with it. There will always be people who will believe in God. And there will always be people who do not believe in God. That creates a superficial difference. That creates conflict. The elites don't want that. They know that to eliminate that process, they need to eliminate religion. Because religion is a very, very powerful rallying tool that rallies people through altruism, as I said. So that's why they're targeting religion so heavily. And you might say, well, why are they propping up Islam? Well, because Islam is directly opposed to Christianity. And Christianity is the biggest religion in the West. So, of course, they're going to bring in an opposing religion that is almost dedicated to destroying it. Muslims merely tolerate Christians under attacks in their system. However, a lot of them now have been rallied to hate them. And again, with Jews as well. Jews are being targeted by the Muslims. Muslims are just this big bloody sledgehammer to organize religion in the West. And don't think that the Islam is favored or protected, because once Christianity and all the other religions have been eliminated and what becomes the ideological standard, I will get to that in a minute, the sledgehammer will be turned on Islam as well, and it will be eradicated. It has served its purpose, it has destroyed organized religion, and it has destroyed people's faith, and then, of course, it too will be slated for termination, because it creates division like the rest of them. It's organized religion. So what will be replaced? Well, we see it a lot. We see it a lot in particularly communist states, that the religion no longer becomes the house of God, but the religion becomes the government. The figureheads at the time become the face of God to them. They worship the party, as they say in 1984. They worship the state. That is something that when obviously all these wrong-think laws, which are already in place by the way, hate speech laws, open your fucking eyes, will you? Um, that is something that once these critical think laws, as I will terminize them, once they're put in place, it will become very, very, very. It will become near nigh heresy. It will become heresy to talk bad against the party or the government at that stage, much like how religions put in heresy laws. In that sense, religion will be replaced by another religion, the government. The government will become religion. So that's if you're wondering why they're trying to terminate Christianity and all these other organized religions, no, it's not because they're right. It's because they are a threat to the government. They are a superficial ideological belief that creates division in people, and they are something that can create skepticism of the government, and they don't want that, and they can't have that. They cannot allow dissent. In this new dystopia they are creating, or they would call it utopia, I call it dystopia. In this new utopia they're creating, dissent cannot exist, and therefore religion cannot exist. So, if you're wondering, that's why. Next comes ideological beliefs, like political beliefs. Obviously, we're seeing already, and have done for many years now, the state approves what is and is not okay to believe in. They are the deciders of what is and is not allowed to be talked about on mainstream news or with the population. They decide what is and is not an acceptable opinion. Just look at hate speech laws, look at causing offence laws, and then look at how they call everyone a far-right extremist despite them being centrists. Look at the doxing of people. You know, there's endless evidence. I shouldn't need to sit here and go over it all with you. If you don't already know, it's really your job to really look it up. I mean, like, if you don't see it already, yeah, what the fuck are you doing? You know, do you even use the internet? So, that we've already seen political and ideological beliefs be homogenized. And again, just to revert back around, when your beliefs are homogenized, your race is homogenized, and your opinions essentially are homogenized, and in essence everything is the same, everybody's the same, no difference, no primitive difference can exist. Well, they've thought of this. The mind is so fantastical at just coming up and discovering just inherent, tiny, minute, just insignificant little differences between people. Do you like Coke or do you like Pepsi? I've been in a debate with one of my friends about which is better. I literally been in a shouting debate with one of my mates about which was better. I swear to God. It can come down to that, and that's where it will go. When you replace grandiose things like spirituality and religion and political beliefs with homogenized beliefs, like state-approved things that you can and can't think, what do you replace it with? Because they have to have something to create distraction. Otherwise, people will sort of wake up to the fact that, wow, I can't say and think whatever I want, and wow, we're all the same. They do need to have difference. They can't eliminate difference entirely. They just need to eliminate significant difference. They will replace it with consumerism. I'm sure you've heard this, the consumer. A person who is completely defined by their attachment and love of brands. They are, their entire personality, their entire political stance and belief system is surrounded and encapsulated by brands. That's what they will replace your ideological standpoints with, and your interest in drama and debating. They will replace your debating with meaningless tripe like who won the football that week, or which product is better, or which movie was better, or which franchise is better. That's what they will replace it with. And you know what? They kind of succeeded. They've kind of succeeded, because when I go on YouTube, I'm fucking disgusted because the amount of channels that are up in arms with a blazing fury about which game was better or how bad this game was. Like, I was there, I'm there, you know, my fire is still there about how angry I am at how bad games are now. They're on like tier 1 on the issue. I'm in like tier 15. I'm so many tiers ahead of them, and they are so lagging so far behind in the debate. It's actually irritating to me. People are still debating about how annoying SJWs are. I mean, like, how much more do we need to say how annoying the blue-haired trannies are and how stupid the blue-haired trannies are. We know, but we need to start looking at the real cause, the real core of the issue, what's it going towards, and what's driving it. Far, of course, you've got the conspiracy boomers who claim it's like Satan or something, and the Illuminati and all that. The government, of course, are figureheads. They've always been figureheads. It's not shocking to anybody. But I just don't think the big old Satan is controlling it. I just think that it's humans doing what humans do, and very sneakily and underhandedly injecting power and restrictions to a goal that we at the bottom cannot fathom. We cannot fathom what it is their actual intent are. We can make our best educated guesses. A lot of those guesses are bunk, because again, where there is room for speculation, there will always be wild speculation. But there is such a thing as nuanced speculation, and I would like to think that that's what I've put forth. If I think of it as if I was in that situation, I had that power, and I was thinking about the longevity of the human race, the first thing that comes to mind is, where are our conflicts coming? Why don't we get anything done? We don't get anything done because we're too busy fighting. Why are we too busy fighting? We're too busy fighting because we can't agree on anything. Why can't we agree on anything? Because the mind is just programmed to inherently disagree with certain things. And inherently notice certain flaws in things that are different to what it is used to and what it is associated with. That is it. It is so simple. It is such a simple solution. It's not even that fantastical. It's not even a super complicated explanation. It's actually the most simple explanation, and that is often the truth. The most simple explanation is often the truth. And I know it sounds complicated, but it really isn't. It really isn't. These people concern themselves with the longevity of humanity. I mean, why, as humans, why would they seek to destroy the human race? That makes no sense. Why would they do that? I mean, yes, there's evil people out there, but even Stalin didn't kill people just to kill people. No, he killed people to keep his regime in absolute power. He may have gotten some sadistic satisfaction out of doing it, but all the evil things that he did, the concentration camps, the hate, the reduction of freedom of speech, the indoctrination of the people, it wasn't done just because he was evil. It was done because he wanted to keep his regime in power. Now, if you want to call that evil, yes, that's a debate in itself. Yes, I think it's evil. I think it's an evil thing to do. But he did it because it was what he seen as necessary to his position of power. He didn't do it just because he wanted to exterminate the human race. That's fucking stupid. He is a human. And of course you get psychopaths who just want to kill people. And probably would push the button to exterminate the human race. But we're talking about a collection, a group, a board party of the super elites. I really don't think every single one of them in that room is concerned with the absolute utmost destruction of humanity. Because you want to know something? Humanity is their biggest profit margin. And I don't mean monetary profit margin. I mean power. They get more power, more control, and more ability the more people they have under their control. And I just want to reiterate very quickly, because I know I kind of glossed over it. This homogenization process, it really started with ideological subversion. It's going to end with racial subversion. It's going to end in a racial way. Because it's an easy thing. It's proven time and time again that the mind is very easy to program in what it believes. It is very, very hard to program a mind in what it sees. Very hard. That's the hard part. You can program it to believe pretty much everything, but it is very difficult to program a mind to not believe what it sees. And that's where the race issue comes in, because when people see someone with a different skin, they automatically notice difference. And like I said, like children in a schoolyard, when something is noticed to be different, little groups form, and they start poking fun, and animosity builds, and eventually identity, your entire identity as a person, can often be associated with that inherent difference. That is the big hurdle that they're trying to jump over. and there's a name for it actually. It's called the Great Replacement. And I'm not the first person to notice this, but I feel like I'm one of the first person to tie it in with a reasonable, nuanced standard of where they're going with it. Some people, every time I see this and they hit the nail on the head with the homogenization process, and then they immediately say, because they like these, they want to exterminate the human race, or all this bullshit, and it's like, no, you've lost me. I mean, yes, there probably will be cullings. There probably will be purges. I mean, like that, there was purges during Stalin's era as well. Like there probably will be purges, but the purges will probably be done more in the coming years with political dissenters and people who know too much. I would be pretty honored if I was considered one of those people. It'd be a great honor, but obviously I would hope to escape. I had a lot of time to think to myself, and I went through an existential crisis. These people are probably in a similar... I mean the ultra elite. They have so much power that they probably view the world from a sociopathic, existentialist type, nihilistic viewpoint. And they just see humanity as the way I see humanity. And that's why I feel like I'm very adept at observations like this, because I can think like they do. I can't think about the specifics. I mean, I was born at the bottom, they're born at the top. They can only see partly down, I can see partly up. But we can't actually fully immerse ourselves in what it's like to live in either or shoes. I would be an expert at living at my rung on the ladder. They would be an expert at living their rung on the ladder, and we would both observe the world in our own sort of way. The super elite wouldn't see the way I see the world. But I can put myself in the perspective, generally, of what they would think like, of how they would make their decisions. And if I were in their position, that's what I would be thinking. I would be thinking, how do I advance humanity? What are the causes? How do I eliminate these causes? And it could even be something as just basic as they want to control the population because they do not want to be overthrown. It could be as basic as that, and there could be more existential party members who are more concerned with the advancement of the human race. I no doubt expect that some of them, Bill Gates or even Elon Musk, they're concerned with space programs and the longevity of humanity. You just kind of think like that when you've got so much power that living life's luxuries no longer means anything to you. There's a story of a king that has everything, and once he has everything, he realizes that he's nothing. Once it's the same thing as if you eat a pizza every day. The luxury of eating a pizza every day wears off. If you drink super expensive champagne every day, it just becomes normal. Think about how many luxuries you have in your life, whether it be a brand new PC or a really cool thing you made or a new game you bought. And after a certain period of time, when you've experienced the glory of playing it, it just wears off. I remember I was more excited for any game to release ever than whenever they said Halo Reach was coming to PC or the MCC was coming to PC. Now I barely play it because it's worn off. I had my fun and I'm bored with it. The same thing happens when you live in luxury. Yes, it's amazing, and the length of how amazing it is lasts depending on who it is, but I think ultimately everybody has that existential moment when they realize, what now? What do I do now? I've done everything, what do I do now? When these super amazing luxuries no longer comfort me in the earthly bonds that I am tied to, what do I think about then? And I think that they come to the conclusion that they think about their legacy, and they realize they have a power to create an immense legacy for humanity, and they started the process, and they've come to the conclusion that to reach that goal, humanity as we know it must change. And that's terrifying. That's terrifying, because I agree with them. Yeah, I agree with them. I understand where they're coming from. If I fight this to the bitter end, does that just mean I'm a regressive person? That I am the holdout? I'm a conservative holdout in a sort of way that I refuse to let it advance. You know, and I sort of came to the conclusion that yes and no. Yes, I'm someone who is holding back verbally and mentally the advancement of a civilization, even though I know it's the only way we can get past that great filter. I still stand obstinate to it because I don't agree with how it's being done. I hate the fact that we can't say what we really feel and think. I hate the fact that our entertainment and educational values are going down and down and down to a almost kindergarten level. I cannot stand that heritage identity and the old way of things is being erased. I love history. I adore it. I can't stand to see it be torn down and disrespected, thrown to the side like garbage. I have a lighter here, and it belonged to a man that I never met. I never met him. I never knew who he was, but I kept his lighter. I fixed it up, I refueled it, and I still own it, and I put it on my shelf here because of the historic value of it. I think history is immensely valuable, and to see it torn down and rewritten fills me with a burning hatred for this this process that we're going through, even though I understand why the process must happen, and why ultimately it is for humanity when it comes to colonization and reaching space and becoming a really advanced civilization focused on a goal of building an immensely powerful civilization. I just don't agree with it. I just don't. I just can't. I mean, in this new society you're going into, are you living or are you just existing? Because you have to define then what is living. I define living as experiencing life in a way you want to experience it, coming to terms with the fact that you're not here for very long, and making the best of the time that you have in the way that you feel is appropriate for you as a person. Now, someone might say, well, the system. Well, what if you're happy and want to live in the system? Well, in this system that I'm talking about, the way that you are told to live is the way you must live. You see, that's the thing. When I say you should be free to live in the way you as a person wish to live, I don't mean that you should be satisfied with your life. I mean you should have the choice to live the way you want to live. Some people will flip that around and say, "Oh, well, what if you're happy to live in that system? What if you love that system?" Well, you haven't chose. I mean, if you choose to live a different way under that system, if you choose to be a freely outspoken political mind, you can't. You can't. I'm sure there were plenty of people who were fairly contempt is the word people will use. I'm sure there were fairly contempt people in the Soviet Union, but if they chose to live a different lifestyle to the one that they had, they wouldn't have had that choice, because the ones who tried to make that choice were in the gulags. There is a complete distinction. There is a difference between being content with the life that you are living and being content with the life you have chosen to live. I mean, for all we know in this system, you may very well have not been aware that there was a choice at all. I mean, that is very much the way of things. You see this in those types of societies where people won't even tolerate the notion that there is a choice, that they live their life the best they can, but ultimately they come to the conclusion that there's no choice, period. They must. I mean, going against the party in 1984 was seen as total heresy and just not even worth thinking about to Julia when she was talking to Winston. That was the mindset that she took because she grew up during that system. She grew up in that system, sorry. It's a really difficult decision, and you have to make it yourself. I can't sit here and tell you what you prefer. I mean, I know where I stand on the issue, and I think that in my understanding of evil, and yes, I know there's no such thing as good and evil in the world, and this is actually a very good this is a very good example of there is no such thing as good and evil in this world, because the path to hell is paved with good intentions, and I can see where they're coming from. They're trying to, abolish difference, in order to potentially advance the society as one unity, as a unity. I don't agree with it. Still, I don't agree with it though. Personally, I think it's evil. I think I think it's a horrible, horrible way to live in a system like that, where you can't think for yourself, you can't speak freely, you can't watch what you want. Everything is dictated and mandated under a strict set of rules. I have never obeyed rules very well, so obviously that type of system is inherently disgusting to me. I hate it. I hate every aspect of it. I hate it. I cannot stand it. But then again, some people who love rules and are happy enough to live under the rules and don't see and don't see how those types of restrictions create atrocities that go unnoticed by the public, they will be campaigning for it. They are campaigning for it if you told this to them. I mean, even in the face of a great filter, I don't know. I don't know. I just really don't know. A question to ask yourself is it really living when you are merely contempt under a system that dictates what you can and can't do, can and can't say, and can and can't go, and can and can't live? Is that living, or is that existing? Are you living as a person? Are you enjoying a life as a human being? Or are you existing as an atomized and homogenized unit? I know my answer. I know there are people out there who would say, advance the civilization and colonize the stars at any cost. I would be interested to know, would you still be saying that when the price is asked of you? Would you still be saying, at any cost? When that price, that toll is asked of you, will you still say, at any cost? Because I don't think you will. I don't think you will. Because you know what? The type of people who say that are extremely lucky people to have never really properly suffered the way that these types of systems make people suffer. I'm gonna have to label it, these types of pseudo-communistic type systems. I mean, that's really what we're heading towards. I mean, it is a pseudo-communistic type system. I don't think it'll be out-and-out communism. People seem to think that it's communism taking over, but it's a sort of communism. It's more a socialism. There is a distinction. We've got these like cashless societies. The cashless society is an option where they have everyone on a social credit and all that stuff. The guy in the bicycle, in the box with the points, be a bit like that, but obviously not in the box. Just try and pretend the box isn't there. Try and imagine the box is your house, like you're just in your house right now. But how you buy things are with these points that you go out and slave away for, and they mean nothing, and your choices are limited, and everything you own is boring and homogenized and the same, and doesn't really fit your identity or individual style. You don't have much choice. That's what, if you've seen that episode, that's why the guy couldn't decide between hairstyles, because none of them were really his hairstyles, so he had to decide which one most roughly fit his, because they have to remove individuality. They have to fit the general look, as little and as general as possible. That's the philosophy. So no, I think it'll be communistic in how everyone will be sort of treated the same in that sense. Like, individuality will be totally stripped from you. In that sense, yes, it'll be communistic. But I think it'll have some sort of pseudo-capitalism in it as well, with a social credit score or even a cashless credit score as well that serves as a currency. I don't know. I mean, this is far future stuff, although we are already seeing it. There's already social credit systems in China. They're testing social credit systems in America, and the Parliament in Britain has expressed great interest in the social credit system. Oh, and of course the European Union as well, because of course they want it. I mean, how else are they going to perfectly police their automaton states? Come on, it's the natural order of things, isn't it? No, I mean it could go so many ways, and that's what I meant by it's very hard to gauge the specifics. Very hard to gauge the specifics. You understand? Very hard. But the general idea of homogenization and indoctrination, that is easy. Everything I have laid out right now, I'm not pulling it out of my ass. Everything I've laid out it has multitudes of evidence, and it's just openly stated to be the way of things are heading. I mean, social credit systems are so blatantly in the open, and everyone knows how dystopian they are, yet people just don't seem to want to listen to you when you bring them up. I had one friend of mine, whenever I brought up social credit, they just wouldn't listen to me, and they said, "Oh, that'll never happen. That'll never happen. That'll never happen," and they just will not hear it. They wouldn't hear it. They just wouldn't even consider the possibility, even though the people who govern their daily lives, they take great interest in it. Yes, because of course they do. Of course they take great interest in it, you fool. It's an easier way to govern you. It's an automated way to govern you. It is a self-policing system. It is perfect for a Big Brother style government. It is the most brilliant system that most brilliantly evil system that they've ever devised. Of course they want it. I can't believe people scoff at that. That really turns my stomach when people scoff at the premise of a social credit system in the West. I mean, like, fuck me. When you look at all the other things we have in the Western society, we have legit wrong think laws. We have wrong think laws in the West. The SJWs, they're a means to an end. They're not the causes of this. They are tools. They are tools of this agenda. Once they have done their job, they will be cast aside, or as Yuri Bezmenov says, shot. I don't know if they'll actually be shot, but they will be levied under the same restrictions that they helped put in place. They are useful idiots, as the government likes to endearingly call them. They're just tools. Indoctrinated tools, yes, but they're just tools. Nothing more. Yes, you know, is it any wonder that the most critical minds of our generation completely reject the SJW narrative? It's because it's nonsense. It's supposed to be nonsense. They were indoctrinated to be annoying, essentially. I hope to God that I made you think a little bit, or opened your eyes a little bit. It is a really hard question. Is it... Do you agree with it, or do you not? Do you want to reach the stars, or do you not? And some might say, why are you talking about reaching the stars? Well, ultimately, I feel like that is the end game for any intelligent civilization, is to colonize space. It's just the natural progression. We conquered land, we conquered sea, we conquered air. Now we must conquer space. It is the natural progression for any intelligent civilization. Expand. Listen. The core primitive function of any life organism in general is to expand outwards. Is to expand in general. Expand its numbers. Expand its territory. Expand its control. Humans are no different from fucking bacteria in that sense. We are the bacteria of the universe. We will infect and multiply on every conceivable inch of space. But to get to that point, we must sacrifice our earthly bonds. That's what it means to cut your earthly bonds, because historical identity and family heritage, those are all things of Earth. And it all ties into a very existential, nihilistic point of view on the universe. And believe me, I could fucking depress you in a conversation. I could depress anybody in a conversation with my views on the universe. But At the same time, you know, I know it's the natural progression. I know it's what we must be striving towards, but I just won't support it. Because it deprives me of another very important thing in my life, and that is choice. I want to have the choice to say and think what I want. I don't care if it's offensive. I don't care if you don't agree with it. I want to have the choice to watch what I want. I don't care if it offends you, and I don't care if you don't agree with it. I want to have the choice to read what I want. I don't care if it offends you, and I don't care if you don't agree with it. I want that choice. A man chooses, a slave obeys, and I will not obey.